afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Shaw, and I am delighted to see so many of you here at County Durham Community Foundation's annual general meeting. We'd like to extend a special Community Foundation welcome to County Durham's Lord Lieutenant Sue Snowden in her inaugural year in office. And before we start this afternoon's programme, I'd just like to run through some housekeeping issues with you first of all, if that's okay. Most importantly, toilets. If you haven't already discovered them, ladies probably will have. They're outside their door, round to the right there, ladies first, gents just a little bit further down the corridor. Now, we're not expecting a fire drill this afternoon, so if the fire alarm does sound, please make your way calmly to the fire exits, which you'll probably see are right at the back up there, and also to the side of the room just over there up the stairs. And if we can assemble outside, that would be fantastic. Community Foundation staff are here to guide you at all times, so don't worry about that. But can we also ask that you please switch off your mobile phones, or indeed turn them to silent? If you could check your phones, that would be brilliant. I'm sure this afternoon is going to be an inspiring one, listening to the work of the organisation over the last year and finishing with a wonderful buffet lunch in the refectory, all courtesy of the Banks Group. However, I would now like to introduce you to Sir Paul Nicholson, Life President of County Durham Community Foundation.
Well, it's a great privilege for me to be here to welcome so many people to this annual general meeting of the County Durham Community Foundation, which covers the areas of two unitary authorities, Durham County and the Borough of Darlington. As already mentioned, we're particularly pleased to have with us the Lord Lieutenant of the whole of County Durham, Sue Snowden, as well as Pauline Charlton, the chairman, and I think you still call them chairman rather than chair, of the Durham County, who also happens to be the mayor of Durham, and that must be a masculine name. Anyhow, before we go any further, sadly this morning came the news that a very distinguished former Vice Lord Lieutenant of County Durham died this morning, Kit Bartram. And I'd ask if people would stand for a few moments in his memory. Thank you. I don't know how many of you may have been present in 1995 at the launch of this community foundation in Chesley Street Cricket Ground, which was by that time fairly new. And we had then, as our principal speaker, the Member of Parliament for Sedgefield. He subsequently went on to slightly greater things, although we haven't seen too much of all the fortune that he's reputed to have made. And the foundation was actually set up by David Grant, who was my predecessor when I was Lord Lieutenant, and myself. And we have been served very brilliantly over the time, and it's very inspiring just how far it's gone under some particularly outstanding chairmen and chief executives. But I would like to pay special tribute to our present chairman, Mark A. Anson, and our current chief executive, both of whom you will be hearing from, but they have really brought the foundation on in the last few years. And we're now in a very strong position and going forward strongly. But so as not to bore you further, I'm now going to ask the chairman to come and tell us what really happens in the foundation. Thank you.
So if I could now introduce Mark Ianson, Chairman of County Durham Community Foundation, who is going to rattle through the formal business and then update you on current work and achievements.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. And at risk of becoming boring, I'd just like to add my welcome to all of you, very distinguished guests, recipients of some of our grants, donors to some of our funds. You're all welcome and we're delighted to see you. I'd also just very quickly like to say a big thank you to Lisa, who is helping out today, doing, I think you'll agree, by the end of the next hour, probably not only a much better job than I would have done, but she's also much better looking than me, so a better person to keep on stage for the next hour, so thank you. And also, before I get into the formal business, I don't think we could let this occasion pass without me just saying publicly a huge thank you to Sir Paul Nicholson. Sir Paul, ably supported by his wife, Lady Sarah, has done fantastic things for this county in his period as Lord Lieutenant. As he's just commented, he and David Grant, his predecessor as Lord Lieutenant, were responsible for setting up this foundation, and all of the wonderful things that have flowed from that really go down to that initial vision that they had. And I think both in that role and as Lord Lieutenant of the county, really, we all owe Sir Paul a huge debt of gratitude. And it's not one that we're going to let him off, because although he's no longer Lord Lieutenant, he remains life President of the foundation and is actively involved. So he's still got plenty of work to do there. But I would just really appreciate it if you could join me in just showing our appreciation for everything that's been done. Now, this is our AGM. We don't want to bore everyone with all of this, and so we've developed a way of getting through this rather quickly. You have, the members of the foundation have seen the minutes of the last AGM. You will have seen the accounts, and indeed they're reproduced in our annual report, which I hope you'll all be taking away with you. We have 3 trustees who retire by rotation, and all of whom are putting themselves forward for re-election. And we would, the recommendation of management is to reappoint our auditors, Clive Owen and Company. So we intend to take that as one omnibus vote, as it were. If anybody has any questions on that, now is the time to raise them. Or if not, could I ask for a proposer and a seconder for that motion? Thank you. And thank you. Good, and with the proxy votes we've already received, that's it. That's the formal part of the meeting out of the way. Thank you very much. Now, community foundations exist to support the areas they're in, and the fundamental difference between us and other charities is that we try to build an endowment. We are aiming to support County Durham for the long term, in other words, in perpetuity, by building an endowment which can generate income into the future. That's what makes community foundations different, and that's what we're really all about. These are difficult times, difficult economic times, and difficult times for fundraising. So it's both encouraging and possibly even a little surprising that we've had a number of new funds, new endowment funds, opened with us this year, and you can see some of them there. I'd like to start at the bottom, really, and talk first about the Community First funds. Community First is a matching programme. What that means is that anybody who gives us money, and there's an example of this, a worked example in the annual review, anyone who gives us money can get a match provided by government through a long and complicated mechanism, and also receives gift aid on their gift. And the bottom line is that if you were to set up a fund for 10,000 or 100,000, if you're feeling particularly generous that day, you can easily end up with a fund held by the foundation that is at least double the amount of money you put in, and that's the money that will be attracting future interest, dividends, growth in capital, and that we'll be using to support the charities and the good causes that we do support. So it's a fantastic opportunity. Now is a great moment for setting up endowment funds if anybody wants to do that, and Community First is a great programme. Moving backwards up the list, the Caedmon Caelfrid Fund, and I hope I pronounced that correctly, is an example of a different type of fund that we run. This is actually on behalf of students at Durham University, a very specific set of students at a particular college. And this is an example of us helping to run a fund for another organisation because we have the ability to manage the admin of that much more cost effectively typically than a trust set up all on its own because we have a number of these trusts, obviously, and this is an example of where we can actually help those trustees fulfil their obligations in a much more cost-effective way. And in fact, we're in the process of attracting a significant number of funds. Barbara assures me that I can say publicly that we believe this could even add up to something like £1 million that we'll be bringing in this year in terms of other people's trusts that we'll be managing for them. That's fantastic as a way of supporting our overheads. It's fantastic as a way of us supporting the good causes that those trusts have been set up for. And the last one that I wanted to mention is the Banks Family Fund. Banks corporately have been fantastic supporters of this organisation for many, many years. Indeed, the Banks Group is sponsoring today's events, and thank you very much to them for doing that. This is a fund set up by Harry Banks personally. This is his family fund, and I think Harry over the years has been a fantastic example, both personally and corporately, of how to do philanthropy. So a big, big thank you to him. This little picture is of a group from Darlington Building Society and is a great example of the sort of matching that I was talking about. They've set up their fund, they've built it over the years through the generosity of Darlington Building Society and its staff in terms of money and of time. They've built that fund up to where they now have over £100,000 invested and generating income for distribution to various causes. The clever thing about that 100,000 is that that is much, much more than the amount of money they've actually put in. And along the way, they've given out £30,000 already in grants to causes that they wish to support in and around Darlington. So they have managed to spend something like half the money that they've ever put into this fund on good causes that they wanted to support, and they've still got £100,000 left. And you don't need to be a mathematical genius to work out that's a pretty good deal. So this is something we're very enthusiastic about and really want to support. Unfortunately, it takes a long time to build endowments. Some of our sister community foundations in the States have huge endowments. We're building ours slowly. So we're very dependent on people who give us funds, what we call annual funds, which are funds that we spend in the year in which they're received. And what I wanted to highlight from this slide is really the incredible diversity of these funds. You can see Banks again, and EDF and the Reg Wind Power. These are examples of community benefit funds where we manage funds, we set up community panels, and they distribute those funds in the areas where wind farms are built, or indeed it might be other things like, for example, open cast mining would attract the same sort of structure. So we support people like that, but you'll also see we have the Community Games Fund, two health funds, the Community Health Fund and the Durham and Darlington NHS Fund. So we work very closely with our local health authorities who believe that we can actually reach places they can't reach and can make grants that they would find it very difficult to make. So we partner with a wide range of organisations across a wide range of different issues. And you'll see there, and we'll come back later to the Jonathan and Jane Ruffer funds, but they have helped us to expand a partnership we have with the Princess Trust and also develop our learning, working, earning apprentice scheme, which you'll be hearing more about later in this meeting. You can see also the Nicholson Open Treasure Fund, and the point I really want to make about these, and I think the point that's interesting, is that this is incredibly diverse. The range of things that we're supporting is across a massive range of interests, and this is the key point to donors, that when a donor gives us our money, yes, legally it becomes our money, but that doesn't mean we say goodbye and thank you. We involve our donors in what we do, we respect their wishes. Our donors are a widely diverse group with a wide variety of interests, of issues that they're concerned about, and we work with them to make sure that we support and address those issues. And I think this is a great example of how that works. This is just one example of a health-related fund. This group of gentlemen here are on what's called a woodland well-being course, which we support. These individuals all have troubled backgrounds. They may have been homeless, they may have been involved in substance abuse, but they're people who need a helping hand, and this is a program that gets them doing something useful out in the open. It's healthy, it builds camaraderie, it builds self-confidence, begins to integrate them back into a more normal way of existing in our society. This is just one of a huge variety of things we do across the county, which really, I think, in totality contribute to the well-being of the community in this county. The result of all this was that last year we gave out almost £3 million in grants. Now, there are only 600,000 people in Durham and Darlington, so that is a significant amount of money. And for a relatively poor county, it says a lot about the generosity of our donors and our funders that we're able to actually fund at that particular level. It also, I think, is a great testimony to the confidence that this foundation has built up, and in particular the staff of the foundation have built up with local authorities, with national authorities. We distribute funds on behalf of many other bodies, the Primary Care Trust. The fact that they trust us to use their money wisely, in many cases more wisely even than they could themselves, is what allows us to build up this sort of fund and to do this amount of good for the county. And this may be small in terms of total spending in the county, but because we can spend it on what we want, because this money is not tied, because we can fill the gaps that other things leave, there's a huge multiplier on this money, and it has a massive impact in the county. This is where the money went. I don't suppose it's very interesting to most of you. It's just there to show you that we do take notice of these things and we do try to manage it properly. And this is an indication of the age groups of the people that we gave the money to. It does look as though the vast bulk goes to adults. That's because most of it actually goes to community groups and they get categorised as adults, but you can see that young people also receive a great deal of our funding. These are examples of, and again, a lot of this information is in the annual report for you to read. These are examples of our community benefit funds. Community benefit funds are set up by developers to provide funds to support the communities and areas where they're working. Typically, we will set up a local panel, a panel of local people who will decide for themselves within bounds that we set, in other words, that it has to meet the requirements of our objectives of the Charities Commission, etc. But broadly, these local panels spend the money in ways that benefit those communities, in ways that they believe are important. And those are incredibly diverse. It might be putting up a statue of I believe that's a part of a railway. I've forgotten the name of the truck that has the coal in, but anyway, it might be putting up a statue, it might be sports activities for young people, it can be a wide range of things, but the point is this is what the communities believe they need to strengthen their communities, and we're delighted to support them. I mentioned a moment ago all the work we do with banks and our gratitude for that. I should mention that we have a growing relationship with EDF, and I'd particularly like to thank them for supporting our annual review this year. For the last 10 years, we have been working with the Big Lottery Fund. In particular, they had a fair share programme in Darlington. This was about £900,000 spent in Darlington to improve the capacity of the community services there. Now, I've mentioned we're in difficult times. Charities all over the country are going bust. The ones that aren't going bust are struggling or worrying about their future. I think this slide tells you some very interesting things. 80% of the groups that we've worked with are confident about the future, and an even higher percent believe that part of that is the work we've done with them. So we have been able to use this money not to spend directly on charitable works, but on ensuring that we have a group of bodies who are able to actually carry this work forward into the future. A very, very important activity, and one that we're enthusiastic to have been involved with. And we have a little booklet summarising the Fair Share programme, which you're all welcome to pick up a copy and take home with you today. Some of you will recognise the gentleman in this picture. What I want to say here is that we work with a huge range of organisations, both local and national. For example, we have been the local agent for Comic Relief and distributed funds on their behalf for many years now. We also work with Sports Relief. We work with both of our local authorities. We work very closely with Durham University. And we work with our national body, the UK Community Foundation organisation. One of the things we've been doing for several years is a programme called Surviving Winter. You will know that all pensioners these days receive a £300, I think it's £300, winter fuel allowance from the government. Of course, many of the people who receive that are relatively well off and don't need it. and we've been running a thing called the Surviving Winter campaign, which encourages those people who don't need that to put it into a fund that we can distribute to people who genuinely are in real need in winter, not only fuel poverty, but in other ways as well. I'm delighted to say that one of our local MPs, as you see here, has been a major supporter of this programme, and indeed has been involved in supporting this at a national level as well as locally. Sorry, it's Kevin Jones, in case any of you hadn't managed to make the connection.